Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to our annual Megatrends Payments webinar event. Today we're focusing on the Americas, including US, Canada, and Latin America. My name is Lindsay Lear. I'm the Managing Director of Payments and Commerce Market Intelligence. If you're new here, welcome. I would love to introduce my co-speakers, my co-presenters here, starting off with Cesar. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Cesar Borali. I have been with PCMI for the past 7-8 months. Very glad to be here, and I think we have a very insightful session ahead of us.
Thank you, Cesar. And also joining us is Marina Gil.
Hello, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Very glad to have you all here. My name is Marina Gil. I work for PCMI for several years now, based in Brazil. I hope you enjoy the session and that the content we're going to present can help you navigate this 2024. As you can see, the RTPs are growing very fast. It's still double digit and beyond 20% in all the region, not all the markets in the region. We have here, for example, Pix, that we speak a lot about Pix. We're gonna get more in depth, but that is now going to another stage, let's call another level of the RTPs usage, now going for the recurring payments, and on medium terms, we're start seeing conversations about credit. If you go to FedNow, see that FedNow, it's a bit different from Pix, especially in this first moment, because it's more related to the B2B and removing their reliance on the legacy systems in the US and allowing faster and more cost-efficient solution that the other providers will be able to then provide to the consumers. In Canada, we have Interact, there is private rail, but really focus on P2P and P2M. And the idea here is just to start allowing the RTPs. The same we have in Simpe Mobile, that is not new, but it's very, very well developed and used in Costa Rica. And now the idea is to gain share over the cards and the other payment methods. PSE, we just brought it here because of it's a bit different. It's more focused on online transactions, but it's very important for Colombia. In Colombia, specifically, we had a recent announcement of the government that they are partnering with Brazilian government to get the best practices of Pix, and they just announced that the Sistemas de Pagos Inmediatos, which is their RTP, that will be more connected to Pix. At the first phase, let's say the first generation of HOAs, they were mostly relying on fintechs, innovative companies, not governments. They were mostly closed loop, not necessarily real time, focused in other use case, but P2P, allowing transfers people to people and mostly closed loop. The big difference and what is really new is the interoperability. That's what Pix brought to Brazil. For example, what we have with Simpe Mobile and Demo that we're going to explain better further is getting to Mexico as well. Thinking forward, this is where we are, this is what we can already see, this new generation, but we have another move coming, and honestly, since things are moving so fast, it should be really not medium term, probably short term, you're going to see some of those impacts in terms of not relying on P2P only, but expanding to P2B and B2B use cases. The same with recurring payments, the offline transactions that can help a lot with the financial inclusion and usage, and which is the most exciting for me is the cross-border payments becoming a reality in terms of HOA and a seamless experience. Pix was launched in November 2020. The growth was like really exponential throughout all the years, and they gained share against all other payment methods, right? You see boletos that we called voucher, but it was like something that used it a lot in Brazil. You barely hear about that for P2Ps and in-person transactions anymore. Debit cards and credit cards. I mean, TEDs, that was the prior bank transfer systems with the low, high cost. Pix gained share overall and now represents around 36% of all transactions made in Brazil. Pix did all this, changed the way we operate here in Brazil, but it's still the roadmap is pretty aggressive. They keep saying and including new features in the roadmaps and under development. So for this year, we have a very interesting one, which is being called Pix Automatic, that will allow recurring payments. The other one that is in the roadmap is the Pix Offline that I mentioned. This is you will be able to do transactions even without an internet connection. And this is, although everyone has smartphones and so on, still there are part of population without the internet connection 24/7 as Pix is. And now with that, they're going to be able to use and make transfers without this connection. One thing that we are hearing a lot is Pix International, allowing for cross-border transactions. This is more complex than other evolutions of Pix because it's not totally dependent on the Brazilian government, but there are work streams on that. And the other one is Pix Tap to Pay, the ability to use contactless technology via Pix, as well as we are currently doing with cards.
Mexico has already had instant bank account rails for many years. SPAY, most of you are familiar with SPAY. CODI was a QR code application on top of SPAY to enable instant P2P and purchases. It really didn't go anywhere. And today, we can say it's pretty much flatlined. The central bank has come back and tried to reinvent CODI, which was DIMO, or Dinero Móvil. The main improvement there is that it has, instead of based on QR codes, it now connects your bank account to a phone number, so that you can make a very easy P2P payment, which is the model that many RTPs systems around the world have followed. So there are good signs that DIMO will be more successful, but it's also very speculative because DIMO is also not following many of the best practices exhibited with Pix. There's a lot of speculation, there are a lot of things up in the air. We do believe that this is an improvement, especially good signs by Nubank launching DIMO, BBVA and Santander, huge and major institutions in the country launching it. But it's still very, very early days. There are no official data, and we'll continue to watch it throughout this year.
One thing that stands out in the very beginning, it's especially when we compare FedNow with Pix and other RTPs across the globe, is that the Fed isn't marketing FedNow as a consumer solution or as a consumer brand. We don't have the same marketing aspect as we have in Pix. So even the whole constitution in the US and the way that they have the states empowered to push down those initiatives, it somehow prohibits at the federal level the FedNow to be mandated to consumers and to banks. In terms of challenges, they will face very strong competition because they are coming late to this game. They will face very strong competition from the wallets. So especially on the P2P side, Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, PayPal, they have been established as the go-to apps for P2P transfers, right? So I think they're gonna have a long way to go, convincing the banks to push this down to consumers. Also trying to bring fintechs, which were not part of the original scope of FedNow, but bringing fintechs into the game. And the idea would be to provide a better UX and somehow providing for fintechs and even the banks to further innovate. Then what we have here, kind of like the side effect that happens across all the markets, but one thing that all the RTPs are trying to figure out, we see that a lot of the SMEs in the region already accept either the RTP or some sort of alternative means of payment. So 95% of the companies in the SMEs in Brazil accept Pix, also associated with a higher bank account penetration and I think a lower cash penetration. We see kind of like a similar pattern in Colombia with Nequi, and almost half of those companies accepting PSE. Mercado Pago in Argentina being a highly popular wallet. Modo, and then in Mexico is Pay as the main payment method, with CODI being still very low. Those alternative means of payments, especially RTP, it provides lower costs, better UX, and it's also heavily pushed by the consumer preference. So a lot of those SMEs are having that as a priority in terms of their payment methods. As they get more digital, that lower cost alternative makes a lot of sense for them.
US continues to be the biggest sender, and Mexico is the second market in terms of volume received by US, only behind India. Okay, and we also have to put an eye on Colombia, because Colombia is also a very important receiver of remittances in Latin America. And what calls attention is that US represents more than 90% of the flows into Mexico and around 50% to Colombia, because Colombia also relies on flows from Spain as the second sender, and Chile.
There are intra-regional flows in Latin America, which really represents a big opportunity. There is not a lot of innovation or a lot of focus on those flows, both P2P and also for small businesses. So a lot of learning can be had by looking at other regions. And there are, of course, banks and fintechs that span almost the entire region. So certainly there is opportunity there. And we see that as kind of an area that could be really exploited.
This is kind of like a big picture of where the region is with regards to CBDC adoption. So on the left-hand side, you see the countries where they are still at the research phase and studying the feasibility of adopting a digital currency. Then in the middle, you see, I think, very key markets for the region that are kind of like completing the research phase, which is an important step towards the launch of the digital currencies. You see Brazil, Colombia, Peru, Uruguay, and Mexico with more advanced initiatives. And then on the right-hand side, we see the countries where CBDCs are live. But we do see a big opportunity for DREX to help with financial transactions as a whole in the sense of tokenized transactions. So it can be very helpful to have a mechanism where buyers and sellers can trust that the value of the product, first, I think that it's the digital representation of something that it's actually valuable to them, which is currency. And second is that the clearing process can be facilitated by a number of rules. So I think in that sense, we do see a lot of opportunities for the CBDCs as a whole.
In terms of data sharing that was mentioned, by allowing other players to see your historic in other institutions, this will give you more credit access, meaning companies can see your full credit historic, for example, instead of only the movements you have within one institution. And this could be more assertive, lower costs, and can help a lot in terms of the credit penetration and the access of credit for the population. Payment initiation is that really allows you to move. It's not only monitor, but you can really use your financial management towards different players or institutions, but via one that you choose to operate with. This is the payment initiation when you can cash in. For example, Mercado Pago here. The idea is like use your wallet. You're there, you need to cash in. Within Mercado Pago, since you shared your data, you choose from which bank or for which institution you want to bring the funds. Mercado Pago will connect directly with this other institution. You select approve it, and then the funds are in your Mercado Pago wallet in this case. The other case is, in the next slide, is to make payments and transfers. Here we have Itaú as the payment initiation. So you select the bank or the institution where you want the payment to be made, but using your Itaú app. And then Itaú connects directly with Nubank. In this case here, you approve the transaction. Nubank makes the payment, but Itaú, you are still in your Itaú app, and Itaú gives you the proof. And here we highlighted showing that payment initiation by Itaú. This is very, very simple and very convenient when using and doing online purchases and using your wallet.
As the world moves into a multi-asset product, so people can have cards, they can have money in their account, they can have a multi-currency account, they can have Bitcoins, they can have other coins, they can have DREX, they can have CBDCs. So I think a big thing will happen, especially in terms of like the core banking and the ledger systems for all the financial institutions, that they need to be able to carry out all those different types of assets. If you want to buy something and you want to use partially, you want to use currency, or you want to use Bitcoins, or you want to use half and half, the biggest point on all of that, it's going to be to validate your ID and how they make sure that you are you and they can actually allow you to transact this way. 20% of the whole e-commerce revenue in the region is lost to fraud. It's extremely relevant, and fraud is a big problem in the region. Brazil, Mexico are very large markets that they do suffer a lot. The first step for most countries, it's actually to allow people, like citizens, to use a digital form of ID. So you don't have to actually carry your physical ID. I think that was kind of like the first phase. And then the second phase is how you actually can use that digital ID to authenticate yourself through like government websites, through like income tax. So kind of like those things I think are a natural path. And then I think the last thing would be e-commerce and transactions and third-party apps in general.